my name is Grace Solomon, and this is a informative culture speech for my public speaking class. I have my two people with me. Hi. And I am ready to begin. So, everyone has a first birthday. I've had one, everyone's had one, but I don't think anyone can quite remember their first birthday, besides the photos of cake and presents. Now, it's not really a big thing nowadays to have a first birthday. It's kind of just the one that begins all of the rest. Nothing big, nothing special. Just gather around to see a kid smash cake in their face. But if I was Korean, I would have had a much more important celebration for my first birthday. That's what I want to be covering today, the Doldanchi birthday in Korea. Except nowadays, the tradition is being lost due to cultural changes and preferences, and I'd like to explain the traditional form of the traditional party. So I'd like to start with the origin. The Doldanchi celebration was started around the 18th century, and it came about due to the high infant mortality rates. A lot of children were dying before their first birthday, not even reaching 100 days. So when they did, it became quite a celebration of their first birthday. So yeah, that's how it came about. Then they celebrated first by praising and praying to the gods. The main gods are Sanshin, the god of the heavens and mountains. The mountains were considered the highest ground and closest to the gods, and Korea has a lot of mountains, so it kind of just got integrated into their prayer cycle. It also came over from the integration of Buddhism into Korea and kind of just mixed in with that culture. The second god is Samshin. Sorry about my pronunciation. I'm Asian, not Korean. But Samshin was the goddess of birth, childbirth. In Korea, it is represented by 3 old women who take care of the child and protect the child from their birth to age 7. And so the celebration would begin with worship and prayer to these 2 gods as celebration for their child getting so far. Usually it would start with the women doing all the praying, and after that time has ended, you move into the feast. So a traditional Doldanchin celebration is more considered like a wedding than a traditional birthday. In America, birthdays are more like, just the cake, the presents, a couple activities, the parents more get together than really for the child because the child doesn't remember it. But in a Korean wedding, it's more of a big family get together, like a wedding. They come together at a table, they feast. The food would include rice cakes and traditional seafood, those representing prosperity and happiness. Lots of fresh fruit, which would represent the next generations having more children, and the happiness for all of the members involved. And similar to a wedding, the child would be taken to each of the members for proper greetings and gift receiving. Gifts would usually, instead of like a toy or like an outfit, it'd include a packet of money, or in back during their time in the 18th century, traditionally a golden ring. So after the child has been passed around, the feasting has begun, they'd move on to the doljabi table, which is what I have a little presentation out right now, which would include items that would represent some aspect of the future. The child would be donned in their first hanbok, which is a traditional hat. Each gender would have their own name, but I don't know those. But they would be donned in the traditional outfits, each respectively. Although nowadays, it's usually just the hat. And they'd be placed in front of the table with all of the items and being encouraged to grab one. So I have a couple examples here. So a book, the child grabbed a book, it'd be representative of like a scholarly or teacher career, or librarian in that aspect. If they grabbed some sort of a weapon like a knife or a bow, they'd be more inclined to join the Korean military, become a general, or some form of public defense. The most wanted by families is usually going for the money. The money is represented of just in general wealth, accounting, banking, or a position with good pay. Another option would be like a pincushion, something that represents work, crafts with the hand, or more of a home worker. And a paintbrush would represent crafts or artisan of that book. So the child would pick one, and then that would be their future. For parents during this event, they'd have a jar for each item, and the parents could put their name in what jar they think the child will pick. If they get the item right, a name will be drawn from that jar, and they would win a small prize. So that's the fun of that. So the Korean tradition is a big thing because of the milestone it means for the child and for hope and prosperity for the future. But nowadays, because the infant mortality rate is so low, the tradition doesn't quite follow the same meaning. The Korean Herald posted a article, Young Parents Redefine Doldanshin, in 2016, which talked more about how the tradition has been changing from a celebration of life to more of a typical wedding showing of status and money. Because nowadays a traditional party would cost up to 3.5 million won in American dollars. That's about $3,000. So if you were going to do a big celebration for your child, it was more of a show off of wealth. But on the other spectrum now is younger generations aren't seeing the benefits of spending that much money on a birthday that their children won't remember, and opt to do more of a small family party, more common to a traditional American party. Haley Bradley and Gina Kimmel both did a traditional Korean party with the hanbok table and, traditional aspects of the party, along with an American party, and they documented those online as well. Also, a couple fun facts about the Doldanshin party is that one, Doldanshin in Korea, the Dol means birthday, and Janji means feast. So the whole thing together is a birthday feast. And I found that very interesting, and I love the tradition as it celebrated the life and celebration of the future for the child. That's a little bit more detailed and important than a traditional American party. It has more meaning, it has more depth. And I like it, and I wanted to educate everyone else on the tradition and tell people that it isn't something that needs to go away only because it's a money issue or that the traditions of worshiping gods or multiple gods has changed. People can still hold smaller parties in a traditional style. A website called Dojabi Korean Tradition Party Planning. Their webpage has many options where you can get traditional garb and traditional items, food, and set up for cheaper than what an actual Korean party would be. And I think it's very interesting that no matter where you are, you can still participate in this celebration. Thank you.